Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something really big, arguably the ultimate mystery, right?
Yeah.
Consciousness itself.
Absolutely. That feeling.
Yeah, that private internal feeling of what it's like to be you, to, see the world, experience things. The taste of coffee, seeing blue.
It's something philosophers and scientists have wrestled with for, well, centuries.
And it's so stubborn. Neuroscience has made incredible leaps, mapping brain circuits, figuring out which bits light up when.
We can see correlations. Joy, recognizing a face, even predicting decisions sometimes before you're aware of them.
Exactly. We know a lot about the mechanics, the nuts and bolts of the brain processing information.
But that leap,
That's the one, the hard problem, as they call it. It's not the how of processing, it's the why. Why does any of that electrical buzzing and chemical soup translate into subjective felt experience?
why isn't it all just happening in the dark, so to speak, without any inner life?
It's a huge gap. Traditional neuroscience, well, it struggles to bridge it. How do neurons firing become the feeling of red? But what if the answer isn't just in those big networks we can see? What if we need to go smaller, weirder?
You mean quantum?
Yeah, the quantum world. Superposition, entanglement, non-locality. All that bizarre stuff. What if that's the key? It sounds pretty wild, I know.
It is a provocative possibility, definitely.
Okay, let's unpack this. So in this deep dive, we're going to explore some of these contemporary theories, look at some really quite groundbreaking findings, and think about the implications, technological, philosophical, of looking at consciousness through this quantum lens.
And we've got a great guide for this.
We do. We're drawing heavily from consciousness and quantum computing, an emerging convergence by Skylar Fiction, plus a whole load of related research.
What's fascinating here is, well, just how audacious this whole thing is. Connecting consciousness, so personal and elusive, with quantum physics, which is notoriously abstract and counterintuitive.
For a long time, it felt like pure speculation, didn't it? Maybe bordering on sci-fi for some.
Absolutely. It was often on the fringes, but things are changing. The advances in quantum computing are, frankly, transformative.
How so?
Because we're building the tools now, actual quantum processors that can generate and control these quantum effects, superposition, entanglement in ways we just couldn't before.
Ah, so it's not just theory anymore.
Exactly. It means we can start to actually test some of these bold ideas. We're moving, maybe slowly, but moving beyond pure philosophical head-scratching towards something like empirical investigation.
Even if the experiments are, early days.
Right. But it's a start, a really exciting one.
It definitely feels like that hard problem is the place to start. That jump from the physical brain stuff, the neurons firing, to the actual experience, the feeling of seeing the face, not just processing the data face. How big is that gap, really, for standard neuroscience?
It's monumental, and that's precisely where quantum ideas first made a really big splash in this area. Probably the most famous foundational theory is the Penrose-Hameroff model.
Right, orchestrated objective reduction.
That's the one. Sir Roger Penrose, the physicist, Nobel laureate, he proposed something really radical.
Go on.
He suggested consciousness wasn't just brain computation. It arose from quantum superpositions, particles in multiple states at once collapsing, but not just collapsing randomly.
How then?
Collapsing due to their own gravitational effects. He called it objective reduction. So he linked consciousness to the actual structure of space-time to general relativity.
Wow, okay, that's radical. Implying consciousness isn't just an algorithm.
Exactly, a non-computable element, which was controversial, of course. It suggested our choices weren't just classical algorithms running.
And then Hameroff came in. Stuart Hameroff, the anesthesiologist.
Right. He took Penrose's physics idea and looked for a place it could happen in the brain. He pointed to these tiny protein structures inside neurons.
Microtubules.
Microtubules. His really bold move was suggesting these structures could maintain quantum coherence.
Which is the tricky part, isn't it? Quantum states are usually so fragile they collapse almost instantly from noise, heat, decoherence.
Precisely. So Hameroff's idea was that microtubules could somehow shield these quantum states, these superpositions, keep them coherent long enough.
Like tiny quantum computers inside our cells.
Sort of, yeah. Long enough for Penrose's objective reduction, linked to space-time geometry, to occur and actually influence our cognition, our conscious awareness.
So the brain isn't just a classical computer in this view. It's got these quantum processes happening at a really fundamental level.
That was the core idea, a massive step trying to bridge that quantum brain gap.
Hugely ambitious. And it really did lay the groundwork, didn't it? Thinking about consciousness and fundamental physics together.
Absolutely. But like any pioneering theory way out there, it faced big challenges. That coherence problem in a warm, wet brain, that was a major one. Max Tegmark famously wrote about how quickly decoherence should happen.
I remember that. The calculations suggested nanoseconds, maybe picoseconds. Far too fast for thought.
Exactly. And there were other trippy bits, like potential issues with causality, sort of retroactive effects in the original model.
Okay, so Orchard was the big first step, but maybe needed some refinement.
Which brings us to a really interesting development in 2024. Hartmut Neven and his colleagues proposed a significant revision.
Neven, from the quantum computing world.
That's him. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, their idea involves a subtle but really important shift.
Okay.
Instead of the conscious moment happening when the quantum superposition collapses,
Uh-huh.
they propose it happens at the formation of the superposition, when it comes into being.
The formation.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Why is that distinction so important?
Well, it has some big theoretical advantages. For one, it neatly sidesteps the need for any kind of faster-than-light superluminal signaling.
Which physicists really don't like. Breaks causality, right?
Yeah.
Effects before causes.
Exactly. It's a major no-no, relativity violation. So shifting the conscious moment to the superpositions formation avoids that whole paradox. Makes it much more compatible with known physics.
Okay, that's clever.
And maybe even more significantly, it aligns the model better with Everett's many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics.
The idea that every quantum choice splits the universe into parallel realities.
That's the one. It's still debated, of course, but it's a major interpretation. By aligning with it, Neven's model doesn't need to invent new physics beyond what many already consider. That's a big plus, theoretically.
So consistency is key.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And Neven's team goes further. They suggest the structure of that superposition, the specific range and arrangement of all the possible quantum states it encompasses that structure, is what determines the quality of our experience.
Wait, say that again. The structure?
Yeah, the specific configuration of the superposition. That's what makes seeing red feel like red or tasting coffee feel like that. It's encoded in the quantum structure itself.
So it's not just that something quantum is happening, but the specific pattern of it gives the subjective character, like a unique quantum fingerprint for each feeling.
Kind of like that, yeah. Imagine a complex musical chord. The specific notes and their arrangement create the feeling. Here, the quantum chord defines the conscious moment's quality.
Wow.
And this connects beautifully to another huge puzzle in neuroscience.
Let me guess. The binding problem.
Exactly. How does the brain take all the separate bits of information, shape, color, motion, sound processed in different areas, and bind them into one single, unified, conscious experience?
Like seeing a yellow bus driving past. It's not separate sensations. It's one coherent thing. How?
Classical neuroscience struggles with that, but Neven and colleagues propose that quantum entanglement, that spooky connection between particles, could be the mechanism.
Entanglement binds the different neural processes together across different brain regions.
That's the suggestion. A non-local connection, potentially instantaneous across distances, that creates the unified whole. It's a powerful potential answer to a very old problem.
That is genuinely mind-bending. The idea that quantum structure is the feeling and entanglement is the unity. But surely when you put forward something that radical, there's pushback. Question.
Oh, absolutely.
Are there other ways people are thinking about this quantum mind link beyond just the structure idea?
That's a great point. And yes, the field is buzzing with different ideas. It's definitely not just Penrose, Hameroff, and Neven. There are many diverse, sometimes competing proposals. It shows how much is still unknown, right?
Yeah.
The discourse is lively, sometimes contentious, but it definitely pushes the boundaries.
So what are some of these other avenues?
Well, one really significant one, because it tries to bring mathematical rigor, is quantum integrated information theory, QIIT.
Okay, QIIT. Sounds complex. Is that related to Tononi's IIT?
Exactly. You need to understand IIT first. Giulio Tononi's integrated information theory basically says consciousness relates to how much integrated information a system possesses.
Integrated information.
Yeah, think about how interconnected its parts are, how much the system as a whole knows about its own state, beyond just the sum of its parts. A complex network has high integration. Simple components don't.
So more integration potentially means more consciousness.
That's the core idea of IIT. A system is conscious to the extent that it integrates information.
Okay. So how does QIIT build on that?
In 2018, Paolo Zanardi and collaborators took Tononi's framework and extended it into the quantum realm. And this is where it gets really interesting.
How so?
Because QIIT isn't just another conceptual model. It provides mathematical tools, a formal language to actually quantify this quantum consciousness idea.
Quantify, like put numbers on it.
Potentially, yes. It gives a framework to assess the complexity and integration within interacting quantum networks, whether that's an engineered quantum circuit or some hypothetical biological quantum system.
So it moves it from philosophy towards something measurable.
That's the hope. It's a foundational step. Before QIT, it was hard to even frame testable hypotheses rigorously. Now there's a mathematical structure to work with. It gives researchers a compass, you could say.
To navigate these very weird waters.
Precisely. QIT isn't saying this system is conscious. It's providing the mathematical framework to ask, to what degree could this quantum system support integrated information? It formalizes the concept for future research.
Got it. Okay, what else is out there? Any other big theoretical branches?
Another really compelling line of thought comes from Christoph Simon. He's proposed something different. Consciousness as a large-scale entangled state of spins within the brain.
Spins, like electron spins.
Could be electron spins or even nuclear spins. The key idea is a vast network of entangled particles. But how would it stay entangled?
Yeah, the decoherence problem again.
Simon's model proposes a mechanism. It's continuously refreshed by photons. Particles of light acting as messengers.
Photons. Inside the brain. How would that work?
It's speculative, but the idea is neurons might emit photons. The axons, those long fibers, could act like tiny optical waveguides, like fiber optics. And then light-sensitive proteins, opsins.
Like the ones in our eyes.
Exactly. Similar types might exist elsewhere and act as detectors, receiving the photons and helping maintain this large-scale entangled state.
So a constant chatter of light keeping the quantum state alive.
That's the proposed mechanism. It's a direct attempt to answer that massive challenge. How do you maintain quantum coherence in the warm, wet, noisy brain? Simon suggests this continuous photon refreshment could be the answer.
Still sounds pretty speculative, but fascinating. Bridging quantum optics and neuroscience.
Highly speculative, yes. Needs a lot of empirical work. But it forces us to think about biology in potentially quantum ways.
And it highlights that microtubules aren't the only game in town when people talk about quantum substrates in the brain.
Definitely not. Researchers are looking everywhere. In fact, there was a really useful review in 2025 by Gassab and colleagues. They sort of categorized the different models.
Oh, how do they break it down?
Basically into 3 buckets. Microtubule-based models, like ORCHAR. Then electromagnetic field-based models, the idea that the brain's own EM fields might support quantum effects.
Okay.
And finally, neurotransmitter interaction-based models, looking for quantum effects in the actual chemical signaling between neurons.
So it's a really broad search. Microtubules, fields, chemicals.
It shows how open the question still is. And within that diversity, another really interesting one is Matthew Fisher's model.
Fisher, what's his angle?
He's a quantum chemist. He focuses on specific molecules. Calcium phosphate nanoclusters, sometimes called Posner molecules or Posner clusters.
Okay, calcium and phosphate.
Oh.
Those are common in the body, right?
Very common, especially relevant to neurons and synaptic function. Fisher's hypothesis is that phosphate ions within these clusters can form entangled states involving their nuclear spins.
Nuclear spins. Are those more robust than electron spins?
Generally, yes. Much less susceptible to environmental noise. And here's the really intriguing part. Fisher's calculations suggest these specific entangled states could potentially last for a surprisingly long time.
Longer than the picoseconds Tegmark calculated.
Potentially seconds, maybe even minutes, according to the preliminary math. Long enough, crucially, to influence synaptic activity.
Wow. So if these Posner molecules are in synaptic vesicles, where neurotransmitters are released?
Exactly. Their quantum state, their entanglement, could directly affect how neurons communicate, how synapses strengthen or weaken, which would fundamentally impact learning, memory, cognition.
And potentially consciousness itself.
Yeah.
That brings quantum effects right into the synapse, the core communication point.
That's why it's generated so much excitement. It offers a more chemically plausible, specific candidate for long-lived quantum coherence in the brain compared to some earlier ideas.
Rooted in biochemistry. Less abstract.
Right. It feels a bit less like pure physics speculation and more like a potentially testable hypothesis in quantum biology.
Okay, so we've gone from microtubules to photons, to Posner molecules, all happening inside the head. But what if we zoom out, like way out?
Now you're touching on perhaps the most radical departure from conventional thinking. Thomas Gernitz's theory of absolute quantum information, or AQI.
Absolute quantum information. What does that mean?
Gurnitz proposes something profound. He suggests that consciousness, matter, and energy aren't separate fundamental things. Instead, he thinks they all derive from a deeper underlying substrate.
Which is?
AQI. This absolute quantum information isn't just information about reality. Gurnitz argues it is the fundamental stuff reality is made of.
Whoa. Okay. So information is primary, more fundamental than matter or energy.
That's the core idea, and the implication for consciousness is huge. In this view, consciousness isn't just something that pops out of complex biology, like brains processing information.
Then what is it?
It's seen as an information processing pattern that's inherent in the fabric of reality itself, more fundamental than the biological matter that might realize that pattern.
So the brain doesn't create consciousness, it taps into it or manifests it.
Something like that. Both the brain and the quantum fields it interacts with emerge from this deeper informational foundation. This raises an important question.
Which is?
What does this mean for the whole mind-matter relationship? If they both emerge from this shared informational bedrock, it's not just matter creating mind. They're perhaps two aspects of the same underlying reality.
Situated in a broader cosmological context. That fundamentally changes where consciousness comes from, doesn't it? Not just biology, but maybe the universe itself.
It suggests consciousness might be less of a biological accident and more of a fundamental aspect of reality, a truly mind-expanding idea.
It really is. Almost philosophical or spiritual, but framed in quantum terms. But, okay, these theories are incredible food for thought. Orchestrated, Neven's update, QIT, Simon's photons, Fisher's molecules, Gurnitz's AQI.
A diverse landscape.
But the real excitement, for me anyway, is when we start seeing hints of experimental evidence. Can we actually test any of this? And this is where quantum computing comes back in, right, as a tool.
Absolutely. Moving from theory to potential verification. Using quantum computers to generate and control the very phenomena entanglement superposition that these theories rely on.
And there's been some genuinely groundbreaking work here recently. Let's talk about that 2025 study by Escola Gascon and colleagues.
Oh yes, that one caused quite a stir.
Their research question was so direct. Can quantum entanglement actually influence human learning and conscious awareness? A direct empirical test.
Bold.
And their method was really clever. They used 106 pairs of identical twins.
Monozygotic twins, crucial for controlling genetic variables.
Right, and they had them do an implicit learning task without necessarily being aware of what they were learning.
Yeah.
Allows you to probe subconscious influences.
Standard cognitive psychology technique.
But here's the twist. One group got visual stimuli generated by a normal, non-entangled quantum circuit. The control group.
Okay.
The other group, their visual stimuli came from an entangled quantum circuit running on IBM's Brisbane quantum computer.
Wow, so they were directly piping quantum entanglement into the visual system.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
Via the stimuli. So what does this all mean? They were exposing human brains to entanglement in a controlled way and seeing if it changed how they learned or processed information.
And the results were, well, pretty startling, weren't they?
They really were.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Q metric they developed.
Right, the quantum multilinear integrated coefficient, Q. It was a new statistical tool they designed specifically to try and isolate the variance in behavior, the differences in responses that could be attributed purely to the entanglement in the stimuli.
And did they find any?
They did. The numbers were quite striking. Entanglement, according to their analysis, accounted for about 13.5% of the variance in how accurately participants performed the task.
13%. That sounds significant in a complex cognitive task.
It is. But even more striking was the comparison between the identical twins. The Q metric, the entanglement factor, explained up to 31.6% of the variance in their responses compared to each other.
Whoa, so even though they're genetically identical, entanglement seemed to account for nearly a third of the difference in how they performed.
That's what the statistics suggested, implying an influence beyond genetics or typical environmental factors.
Did they look at anything biological?
Yes, they did. They measured biomarkers related to neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and adapt, and they found a 26.2% increase in neuroplasticity markers in the group that received the entangled stimuli.
Increased brain plasticity from looking at entangled patterns.
That's the finding. Now, we absolutely have to stress the caveats here.
Okay, yes, important.
The exact mechanisms are completely unknown. How could visual entanglement translate into these effects? We don't know. And crucially, this is one study. It desperately needs independent replication.
Absolutely. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Precisely. But if these findings hold up, They strongly suggest that external quantum states, like entanglement, can subtly modulate human cognitive processing, maybe even conscious states.
It's a powerful hint of a direct quantum brain link, even if we don't understand how it works yet.
Exactly. It hints our minds might be sensitive to quantum phenomena in ways we're only just starting to explore.
That is just incredible. Makes you wonder what else might be influencing us. And it naturally leads to thinking about the future, doesn't it? If external quantum states can influence us, what about direct interfaces?
That's where some of the theoretical roadmaps are heading. Neven's team, for instance, speculated about coupling a human brain directly to a quantum processor.
That sounds like pure science fiction.
It does today, yes. But imagine creating entanglement not with external stimuli, but between your actual neural states and qubits in a quantum computer.
What would that even do?
Theoretically, it could potentially go beyond just influencing cognition. It might allow for expanding or altering conscious experience itself, a direct neural quantum link.
Merging mind and machine at the quantum level.
That's the extreme speculation. We're nowhere near that technologically, of course. Huge hurdles, but it's part of the long-term vision these ideas inspire.
Are there any sort of baby steps in that direction? Hints from current research?
There are some intriguing precursor experiments. For example, studies using xenon gas for anesthesia.
Xenon, how is that relevant?
Xenon atoms have isotopes with different nuclear spins. That's a quantum property. And studies by Lyon and colleagues found that these different isotopes with different spins actually had different anesthetic potencies in animals.
So the quantum spin of the atom affected how unconscious the animal became.
That's what the results suggested. It's a hint that fundamental quantum properties might interact with biological systems, perhaps proteins involved in consciousness, in a way that influences the conscious state itself.
Fascinating. So the goal now is to reproduce that reliably.
Exactly. Reproduce it, understand the mechanism. Does quantum coherence play a role in how anesthesia works? If nuclear spin matters, it opens up a whole new way of thinking about quantum effects in biology.
Okay, so influencing biological consciousness.
Yeah.
What about creating consciousness elsewhere, in machines?
Pushing the boundaries even further. This leads into the highly speculative realm of potential machine consciousness, specifically on quantum computers.
Go on.
Douglas Uvan put out a preprint in 2024 proposing something called introspective holography.
Introspective holography. What's the idea?
It's a theoretical technique for a quantum computer to essentially monitor and analyze its own internal quantum state in real time.
So the computer could look inside itself, see its own quantum workings.
That's the concept. Build a self-model based on its ongoing quantum processes. And here's the leap.
Yeah.
Uvan speculates that this kind of deep quantum-level self-referential processing, this ability to introspect its own state, could theoretically give rise to a form of machine consciousness.
Consciousness from self-monitoring at the quantum level.
It's highly speculative, of course, but it forces us to ask. This raises an important question. If that ever became possible, what are the ethical implications? If a quantum machine develops genuine self-awareness through this kind of process, what rights should it have? What responsibilities would we have towards it?
Would it be sentient? Could it suffer? Massive questions.
Absolutely massive. Moral and philosophical questions we need to start thinking about long before the technology gets anywhere close. It could reshape our definition of life and personhood.
It's clear the possibilities are, well, mind-altering. But let's ground ourselves again. Integrating quantum physics and computing with consciousness research. It's not easy, is it? There are huge challenges.
Formidable challenges. Scientific and technical. It's definitely not a smooth road.
What's the biggest roadblock? Is it still decoherence?
That's arguably the biggest hurdle, yes. The Achilles heel. Quantum states are just so incredibly fragile.
They collapse instantly with noise, heat.
Right. And quantum computers fight this by operating near absolute zero, maybe 20 millikelvin, in extreme isolation.
But the brain?
The brain is 37 degrees Celsius, 310 Kelvin. It's warm, it's wet, it's chemically buzzing. It's basically the opposite of the ideal quantum environment.
So how could delicate quantum states possibly survive long enough in there to do anything meaningful for thought? That was Tegmark's point, right?
Exactly. His calculations suggested decoherence would happen far too quickly. So, demonstrating robust, long-lived quantum coherence in brain-like conditions remains the central, unresolved challenge for models like Orchestrated, Posner molecules, entangled spins, Can it actually happen? We still lack definitive proof.
Okay, decoherence is huge. What else?
Well, beyond the physics, there's the measurement problem of consciousness itself.
How do we measure consciousness?
That's the problem. Neuroscience is great at measuring, correlates brain activity, blood flow, electrical signals via EEG, even single neuron firing. We can measure the stuff happening in the brain, but we have no universally accepted objective measure of subjective experience itself, independent of someone telling us what they feel or inferring from behavior.
There's no consciousness meter.
Exactly, as Stanislas Dehaene puts it, we can't just plug someone in and read out their level or quality of consciousness. We rely on self-report.
And that makes testing these theories really hard.
Profoundly complicates it. If we do some quantum manipulation, how do we know if we've actually changed awareness itself or just caused some downstream physiological effect that looks interesting on a scan but doesn't alter the subjective feeling?
Measuring the shadow, but not the thing itself.
It's a fundamental difficulty in pinning down the phenomenon we're trying to explain.
And then just the practical engineering side of things, like those quantum brain interfaces.
Huge engineering challenges there. Even if you could maintain coherence in brain tissue, how do you physically connect those biological quantum states to, say, superconducting qubits in a quantum computer?
Yeah, one is warm and wet, the other is colder than deep space.
The precision needed, interfacing across those vastly different physical regimes, it's way beyond current neurotechnology. People are thinking about optical sensors, molecular scale quantum dots, maybe.
So that's all very early stage.
Very early development. Massive engineering hurdles to overcome just to build a stable, reliable interface that doesn't destroy the quantum states you're trying to measure or interact with.
So scientific challenges, measurement challenges, engineering challenges, and then the big ones, ethics and philosophy.
They loom large over this entire field.
If it turns out quantum processes are essential for consciousness, and if machine consciousness on quantum computers becomes even a remote possibility, society faces some really unprecedented questions, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Deeply transformative questions.
So what does this all mean? That question Yvonne raises. Should an introspective quantum system, one capable of modeling itself, be given rights, like sentient beings?
It forces us to ask, what is sentience? What qualifies for moral consideration? Does the substrate matter biological versus silicon versus quantum? It challenges our definitions.
And the potential for misuse. If we could manipulate consciousness using quantum effects, enhance cognition, change personality.
The dark side, yes. What safeguards would we need? How do we prevent coercion, unintended consequences, new forms of inequality if some people can upgrade their minds?
These aren't just lab questions anymore. They're becoming real moral frontiers we need to map out.
We need robust public and ethical discussion running in parallel with the science, not just playing catch-up afterwards.
We have covered such vast territory today. It's been exhilarating. We started with that core mystery, consciousness, and dove right into the quantum deep end.
From Orchestrated.
Yeah, Penrose and Hameroff linking gravity, space-time, microtubules to our inner world. Then Neven's update consciousness at the formation of superposition, tying into many worlds, maybe solving the binding problem.
Then the wider landscape.
Right. Zanardi's QIIT giving us math to quantify it. Simon's entangled spins and photons. Fisher's Posner molecules offering a specific chemical pathway in the synapse.
And Gernitz's AQI.
Taking it cosmic. Consciousness as fundamental information in reality itself. Just incredible theories.
A real spectrum of ideas.
And we saw it's not just theory. Those empirical steps, like the Escala-Gascon twin study,
using entanglement from a quantum computer,
showing potential cognitive effects, changes in neuroplasticity. Needs replication, yes, but still. Compelling first hints that quantum phenomena might influence us directly.
And those xenon isotope studies related to anesthesia.
Right. But we also have to be realistic about the hurdles. Decoherence in the warm brain.
Yeah.
That's still the elephant in the room.
Absolutely. And the lack of a consciousness meter.
Difficulty of measurement.
Yeah.
Plus the sheer technological gap for things like interfaces. And those huge ethical questions hanging over it all.
Machine rights, human enhancement.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not quantum mechanics turns out to be the final, complete explanation for consciousness. And maybe it won't be. Or maybe it's only part of the story. This whole dialogue between neuroscience, quantum physics, quantum computing, it's already proving incredibly fruitful.
How so?
It's forcing us to ask deeper questions, more fundamental questions about reality, about information, about what it means to be aware. It makes us look for connections we might have completely missed if we stayed siloed in our own disciplines.
Pushing boundaries.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, by pursuing this kind of rigorous cross-disciplinary work, scientists aren't just learning more about the brain's mechanics or the quantum world's rules in isolation.
They're learning about both together.
Right. They're deepening our understanding of both the mind and the quantum realm, and potentially how they intersect. It illuminates not just how we think, but maybe something about the very foundations of reality itself.
A journey into the deepest mysteries, really.
Driven by cutting-edge tools and that fundamental human urge to understand.
It really is. And maybe that leaves us with one last provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. If consciousness isn't just a fluke of complex biology happening only in brains like ours, but if it's an emergent property that could also arise in quantum machines, or if it's even more fundamental, like Gernitz suggests, an inherent pattern in reality's fabric, what does that really mean for our place in the cosmos?
Less unique, perhaps, or differently unique.
And how would we even begin to recognize consciousness if it appeared in forms radically different from our own? Forms we don't yet understand, something to definitely ponder.
Indeed.
We'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.